Well, good afternoon and welcome to Penn Sports Podcast. This is Frank Edgar.
This is Becouvarakis.
Episode 15, Wube. We are moving through 2018 very quickly.
Yes, we are. 15 episodes. We are in, I guess, the tail end of the spring season. We're getting close. 1st of May will be rolling in and getting ready for that regional berth.
And we are surrounded by clippings from the Daily Press, and we have
It's
notes.
like a deliberation or something over there, Frank.
We really have we have so much to share with you this week, and we're glad you're with us. We have our great producer Randy Begoli joining us today, and we're at the studios of Goldstein, Edgar, and Regan. We thank them for allowing us to use this studio. I tell you, Wube, we've tracked down a couple of great guests today. We're going to have Jason Henderson from over at Smithfield High School and talk about the hottest boys soccer team going right now.
We've been trying to get him on for a long time. We're fortunate and grateful. He's coming on, 9 or 10-1 right now. They're rolling and having a great season. A lot of great wins so far too, Frank, and obviously he'll talk about those wins later on.
Yep, and then we've got Ben Becouvarakis over at Warwick talk about girls soccer.
And they're having a great season as well. Only one loss in their record, and they're also unofficially both coaches will have on today are number one in their respective division. So we have Warwick girls number one in the 5A and Smithfield boys number one in the 4A division.
Well, then we've got a lot of other sports we'll share with you after talking with Coach Henderson. Let's get him on the line. Coach Henderson, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, congratulations on this great start of the 2018 season. You're 9-1, heading into a tricky week with 3 road games. But talk a little bit about your program and how you got them to 9-1 this year.
Well, we've had, this has been a long time coming in the sense of our program and so forth. 15 years ago when I got to Smithfield High School, the varsity team was probably winning 1 to 2 games a year, and that was kind of the norm and so forth. And me and a guy by the name of Larry Roadtruck took over the program. He was the varsity coach, and I was the JV coach, and just really started that process and started turning them where they believed in themselves and so forth, and a lot of backing by the community and club programs and so forth in the area. And I really feel like that it's just you're finally starting to see the output of 15 years and so forth. He's now our AD, and I'm now the varsity coach for the past 2 seasons. And it's been a long time coming in the sense of, you see the progression through the JV players right to the varsity guys. And we have a really special group this year. Last year we had a great season also, but this year is just a really special group of guys.
Well, I know you've got a tough week coming up here with 3 road games. What do you think about, was it Dinwiddie, Becouvarakis, then New Kent, 3 games in 5 days?
Yeah, and we played War Hill on Friday too. So as far as definitely a lot of games on a short span. I know that Becouvarakis is playing some really good soccer over there, and anytime you have to go to Becouvarakis, that's definitely a game that you want to be prepared for and so forth. And so that's definitely one that's on our radar, and really with the success that we've had. Keeping the guys humble is obviously something that, that is something that I feel like the reason we've been successful is because we haven't got overconfident. We've been disciplined. We've gone through our routines and been pretty consistent and so forth. So this week will definitely be a challenge, but, it's just like any sport or any game, you just have to take one game at a time. And that's the approach that we've taken all season. So we'll worry about Dinwiddie on Monday, and then, we'll turn around and get ready for Tuesdays and so forth. So hopefully, if we come out this week looking strong, then really, Grafton is the next game, and that will also be another big one for us.
Well, Coach, you talked about challenges. I mean, if you look at your schedule, you've had some challenges. You beat Kickinton, you beat a good War Hill team on Friday, Western Branch, Lafayette, Jamestown. I mean, you've beaten some great teams, Coach. And you said keep your kids humble. What's the best way you're able to do that?
Well, like I said, I think that just not letting them get overconfident, and even in wins, we critique them. We look at film all the time, and we go through that process, and what are things that we could have done better, and games that we could have really opened up and maybe left it, tight. That's something that, trying to get them to understand that, when we get to that point in the season, those opportunities have to be capitalized. So just keeping those types of things and under their minds and trying to keep them not too confident. I'll be honest with you, 9-1, I really haven't talked about it much. I kind of, the whole season, we've kind of talked like we're sitting in second or third, and that's kind of been our philosophy all year, that we've wanted more, we've wanted more, we've wanted more. And, I think that's kind of, the philosophy that will continue throughout the season. And, hopefully the guys will stay humble and continue to progress.
Well, I know you got a couple of seniors over there that are playing really well for you. Can you talk a little bit about them?
Sure, yeah. So the first one I would say is Parker Catterbone. He's playing lights out right now. He plays up top for us, and he's scored several goals in pretty much every game we've played, several assists, so on and so forth. And he's just a phenomenal athlete. The guy can find the back of the net he has so much range. In the Jamestown game that we won 2-1, which there were 2 PKs in that game, but he hit a shot probably from about 25 yards out, and the keeper, there was no way the keeper could have done anything about it. I mean, it was going inside corner and a half volley, and he's just playing phenomenal soccer. He's also committed to Longwood for next year, so I'm sure he'll do great things up there when he gets there. Some of my other seniors that are playing some really good soccer, Ian Cullen, he kind of dominates the center for us, is our vocal leader in the center. Has done some great progression in the sense of getting rid of the ball quicker from this year to last year. And it's actually now really started becoming a scoring production also. The last game he scored 2 goals, and the game for that he scored a goal. So he's starting to get in his own, kind of find his groove, and that's kind of what we want as we move forward, is guys continuing. And then in the back, senior-wise, Braden Bird has played phenomenal as a center back. He's feeding a lot of balls to our forwards and all across the field. He's also our free, our corner kicker, and also any free kicks. He pretty much takes the majority of those. So between those things, those 3 seniors have really led, and those are my 3 captains. And there's this year I do have so many different guys that can play different positions and so forth that it's been phenomenal about how I can move guys around and we don't really lose anything. So where I can't say that in the past about other teams that I've had, that this group of guys is special. So.
Well, Coach, I'd be in deep trouble if I didn't mention a couple of juniors, the brothers, Colby and Nick O'Reilly, whose mother I spent the morning with today. But we got to watch Colby kick one in a couple of weeks ago that we actually saw the video of. Terrific kick by the left footer.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick O'Reilly right now, as far as, and that's the great thing about the guys I have. Like I said, I've moved a lot of guys around and have been able to. Nick is playing really, really good soccer in the sense of the offensive side. We've actually played him up top the last couple games. In the last couple games, he's been very, very productive. I think he scored 4 or 5 goals in the last 2 games. So, and again, Warhill and then Tab, obviously, both of them have had pretty, when they play people out of district, they've done really, really well. So, that's, as we move forward, I think that he'll continue to progress. Mentioning some other guys that have done some great things. I'm basically starting 2 freshmen, Liam Moore and Trevor Miller, and both of them, as years progress here, they're both going to be really good soccer players in the sense that I could see, potentially both of them going to play at a really high level. And we've had a lot of guys, go off and play, Division II, Division III. Not as many play Division I. And, I feel like that those 2 guys are 2 guys that potentially, down the road could potentially play. I'm sure Nick and Colby, both of them will get the opportunity to play somewhere if they choose to play. And, several other guys that I could list. I could keep going. Our keeper, has had a phenomenal year. In the Western Branch game, he definitely kept us in it in the sense that it was a 2-1 game, but we just offensively and defensively we're kind of having a rough night, and he kind of kept us composure and kept us all together. So
Coach,
but there.
well, Coach, tie together what you started talking to us about, your history over the past 15 years there and the success of the program. In specifics, has it taken soccer teams, soccer events in the community to help you build this flow of players that are coming through the school?
Absolutely. So, going back, to when I started there at Smithfield, I was a JV coach for, I guess, 13 years there. And they're just, when I got there, the philosophy or the program was at a point that they were winning 1 or 2 games a season. That was it on the varsity side and even on the JV side at times. And I was fortunate enough to work with and still work with, he's now currently the AD, Larry Roadtruck, and he was the varsity coach and I was the JV coach, and from little by little, and then also from the help of clubs in the area in the sense of Smithfield Club, and just the understanding that soccer is really something, if you're going to be competitive in it, that you need to play year round, and getting that through to the parents and so forth. And I think that Smithfield's always had 1 or 2 guys that played year round and so forth. But now, I think at tryouts, we had 60, 70 kids, for Smithfield, and this is little Smithfield. So, I think that the community has really understood, kind of where it takes and what it needs to take. And, I just think that I've been very, very fortunate to be a part of all of that, that foundation and bringing that foundation in of what needed to be done. And, once this is kind of the byproduct you see of it, in the sense that now we've had 3 or 4 really good years of making it to the conference finals and making it to, the next set of games and so forth. And, like last year, we had a really good run. And, the year before that, we had a really good run. And really the year before that, we had a really good run, even though that we weren't getting the publicity that we are now. And I think that all goes back to, kind of what we started out and are continuing to do. And, the guys are just thriving in it, in the sense of where we used to be to where we are now.
Well, Coach, excuse me, you talked about last year's run. You made it to the state quarters. I know you don't like to look ahead and you take one game at a time, but are you positioning your team and your kids for that, regional playoff berth and possibly state berth this year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any team in the state that we can't compete with. And I think we've kind of shown that already. The only loss that we have is Chancellor, and they made it to the state finals last year. And, really, if we were playing how we are now, I don't know. I mean, it was 2-1. It was very close, but I don't know if they're playing with us as well as they were in that game. So, I just think that this is a group that, that's the overall goal, of course, and we keep that, kind of in the back of our minds, but at the same token, keeping that one game approach is definitely from a kid side of things, has made it easier. We talked about states a lot at the beginning of the year, and really since the beginning of the season, we're worried about just keeping where we're at, and then let's progress to the next goal, so. And any setbacks we have in there, I think that's kind of the critical part of it, is how do you manage a setback? So, but unfortunately, we really haven't had any. I mean, we have had spurts in games, and that's something that I think that goes back to my whole philosophy of keeping them humble and so forth. There's parts that we dissect and look at and say, for this 15, 20 minutes, the other team was a better team. So trying to play full games and complete games and so forth is kind of one of the things that I challenge them to do and everything. But the special thing about this team is that we haven't played in the same formation pretty much a whole game against anyone. And, maybe here or there, but they're just a smart group of guys, and I have so many guys that I can move around and put different places that it really is kind of built to where we're at.
Coach, I'm curious, and I love to hear Coach's opinions on this. When you were having those lean years, Smithfield's known for a lot of great programs there. You know, you have a great football program. Softball's always done pretty well. Did you ever look at those programs and kind of model yours after those teams to get your team where you needed to have them?
Not necessarily, just because I feel like, I think the idea and the concept of the success, absolutely, that foundation of being successful. And, I think that once the guys only know winning, it puts them in a different mindset, when they don't know how to lose a game is, I think is a positive, in the sense that, where if they settle for it, when they settle for it, that's when you always, when they want more, that's what you want. And, I think that mentality is kind of the mentality that we've taken there, that, that not that winning is everything, but in the sense that how do you not lose consistently, and how do you go through that? And it starts to practice. It's not even about at a game or so forth. And, I'm hard on the guys at practice, and at the same token, when it's time to get ready for a game, it's supposed to be a relaxful time, because you're supposed to have done all the hard work and beforehand. So now this is the fun part. This is when you actually get to apply what you worked all week for. So, next week, I wish we had a couple more of those days, just with our schedule next week. But but like I said, I think that where we've came from where we were, I think a lot of it was a lot of factors. Especially the community, and I think that a lot of just the amount of kids that we have playing soccer in Smithfield, and I don't mean necessarily playing at a high level, but just going out and loving the game and, getting exposed to the game. It's just given so many more venues and opportunities for, these young soccer players that you're seeing nowadays. So, I think that that's kind of definitely a plus from where we were to where we are now.
Well, Coach, we know you got a tough week ahead and a challenge to make it a little further in the playoffs, so we wish you well in that, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, like I said, I could talk all day long about these guys and what they've done, and I really give it to them, because I think that that's who deserves credit first and foremost, because they have came together nicely, and hopefully we can continue forward and stay humble and just take one game at a time.
Well, we know as people that have been around the sports world that it's often the 15 years of work that is unnoticed when the victories come at the end of that period. So congratulations on your work and on Larry's work over there, and look forward to seeing Smithfield go deep in the state playoffs.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach.
Coach Jason Henderson, Smithfield High School boys soccer. Good luck to you. Wube, that was quite an interview and a lot of information for the fans. But the main thing is the community commitment to soccer that Smithfield has shown over the last 15 years, and bringing in people like Jason Henderson to, 13 years as a JV coach, a lot of hard work.
And he talked about the lean years he had when they first started, and now they make it to the state quarters. I mean, he's done a great job helping that program get to where they need to be. And it sounds like he made a great point. You could have players in the program and not actually be at a high level, but the participation in their effort can help a program build. Just having the numbers basically to build something special, and that's what he's doing. He's doing a great job over there.
Well, we see that probably more in the negative when you see some schools that have weak programs, and I'm talking about numbers wise purely. But I've known the O'Reilly young men for several years now, and I know how committed they are to soccer. I know they have sand soccer tournaments throughout the year. I know they play for a club team.
Yeah.
So I know how much effort they put in, and if you extrapolate that out to the whole team, you know what the kind of commitment they've made over there at Smithfield.
Absolutely, and to be honest, Frank, I think I mentioned to you, I was shocked. I wasn't shocked, and I was just shocked that they were 9-1. They were doing so well, and I looked at some of the victories they had, and I'm like, they beat some good teams. I mean, they beat Hickory, who's a powerhouse on the south side. Lafayette. They beat Jamestown. I mean, these are Kickingham. I mean, these are quality wins for an athletic department that I'm known. It's a football school. I've always looked at them as a football school just because that's what we've been recognized, and we never really talk about soccer. That's why I'm glad we had Coach Henderson on to kind of mention some of the things he's been doing over there for a long time to get that team back on top.
Well, I'll tell you, fans, get out there and watch some of their games, and especially this week. I know if you feel like you want to ride back in history and go to Dinwiddie High School, and I say that because we were up there watching Phoebus and Dinwiddie play football a couple of years. It's not a bad ride up. Go up and support the Packers up there. They're going to need all the support they can get, and let's hope they can carry it through to a state title this year.
Yeah, I mean they made it to the quarters last year. They're rolling. They're number one unofficially in the 4A division in boys soccer. So they're looking good. But again, coach said he wants to keep his team humble and take one game at a time. And before you know it, it'll be playoff time, and we'll see how they do in the playoffs.
Well, let's turn the talk to girls soccer, another very popular sport that's growing every year, and we got a new participant that we're looking at the top of the standings.
Yeah, I mean the Warwick girls, Frank, they're number one in their division in the 5A girls. It's basically Warwick, Maury, and Minchville, the top 3-4 teams in that area, in that division, and that's good to see because you have some peninsula teams that are in there. So we go from one number one to another number one. That's the number one ranked team in the 5A girls division, and I'm talking about the Warwick girls, and we're joined by the head coach of that squad, Mr. Benjamin Becouvarakis. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Now, Coach, I got a chance to see you play on Friday against Bethel, an 8-0 win. Just talk about your team so far going into the tail end of the season right now.
Well, right now the girls are really strong. They come to practice every day ready to work. And as we continue the season, I see a lot of growth that they've done so far, and a lot of growth I expect them to achieve before the end of the season. I was a little, we were all very disappointed with our loss against Smithfield. I think that was a bit of a hard game for us. It went, sometimes luck rolls the other direction. But we failed to capitalize on a couple of major plays, and I picked up and scheduled Mari for next Friday, so we've got another challenge coming up soon.
Yeah, go ahead. I was a good coach. It's Frank Edgar. I wanted to ask you, how do these challenges help prepare your team for the upcoming playoffs?
Hopefully, we get to see some of our weak spots. In the Peninsula District, we have some teams that are very competitive and some teams that are not as competitive. So it can be difficult to see where your weaknesses are. I mean, you saw an 8-0 win. So we're trying to find some of our weaknesses going into regional so that I know what we need to work on and the girls know what we need to work on, and also challenge ourselves. I don't want the first time we're tested to be when we actually get to regionals and it's a knockout round.
Hey, Coach, going into the season, you lost one of your best players, probably one of the better players to ever play at your program, in Patricia Ward. Talk a little bit about the loss of her and how you were able to adjust this year.
Yeah, well, I never had the pleasure of coaching Patricia. I did teach her, so I am a teacher at Warwick High School, and I had her in my class, and she was a wonderful student, and I'm sure she was also wonderful to coach. And I got to watch a couple of their games going into the playoffs last year, and you could tell, she had amazing technical skill. But the team as a whole, I think, has improved. So even though we lost someone so technically talented, the holes that they had last year were filled. We had some 10th graders coming in this season that really solidified the team and made it a much stronger team.
And I noticed you had twins on the team. They also play basketball. Talk a little bit about their progress. I mean, they've gotten a lot better since last year as well.
Yeah, they have. And not only that, they've also picked up a lot of the responsibility left behind by Patricia. They're workhorses defensively and offensively. They get forward, they get back. We rely heavily on them. They're great players. And not only that, they're, as a teacher, I always like to bring up that they're also great students.
Absolutely.
So, they're two girls that I never have to worry about. They come to practice ready to work. They go to school ready to work. And they're just great athletes.
Coach, what do you feel you have brought to the program as the head coach this year? I know there's been some success there in the past. What have you brought? Have you brought anything different or something to add to the program to achieve the level of success you've had this spring?
I hope so. I bring a lot of passion. So I'm a Warwick alumni myself. And, I was a part of a team back in 2006 that got to go to regionals for the boys. And so I bring a lot of passion about the sport and a lot of passion about Warwick High School. And I know I would, just want the girls to show up and play hard and practice hard and really represent our school. So I think that's what I mostly bring toward to this squad versus Blackburn.
Now, Coach, you come from a long line of athletes here on the peninsula. The Becouvarakis family, big, especially in Hampton. And I was wondering, how did you get away from baseball and football and get into soccer?
Well, a lot of that was my mother. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play football my entire life, but she said I was too small and she didn't want me to get hurt. And I mean, Becouvarakis aren't large people, I'm the biggest in my immediate family. My brother's 5'6", I'm 5'9". So, and that's a generous 5'9". So she didn't want me to get hurt, and I couldn't stand still. So baseball, they couldn't get me to focus for more than 2 minutes to play baseball. So I liked moving and I liked running, and so it just happened that soccer fell in my lap.
Now, what are you teaching over there, Coach?
I teach math at Warwick High School.
All right. And is that in that role, are you able to maybe find some additional young ladies to come out and play for you?
Of course. And, being involved in the school, I know who the track athletes are. I know who the basketball athletes are. I know who the volleyball athletes are. I mean, you name it. I know about every, major athlete within the school. So, recruiting, especially when you come from a school that doesn't necessarily always have a ton of talent, you have to fill roles. And so if you can find athletes from other sports that are good enough to make a difference, you can always pick them up.
Well, Coach, you're heading into the final weeks of the season. You're looking towards the playoffs. What does your squad have to do to go deep in the playoffs?
Well, we have to make sure we don't make any mistakes. That's always a big thing. And that we're focused going into the end of the season. Defensively, I think we're great. We've given up 2 goals this regular season. Very solid defense. And that's one of the things I've always focused on. I don't want to give up goals. I love scoring goals, but I don't want to give up goals. And so we've been very focused and haven't made very many mistakes in the back. But what we really need to do is we need to start stretching the field. We need to develop that dynamic attack instead of, we rely a lot on the twins. And I think as the season goes on, we're going to have to really branch out and have everyone helping out with goals and attacking play.
Well, Coach, again, you're right now at the top of the standings going into the later part of the season, and we're going to definitely be keeping track of you, and we'll hopefully catch you down the line, Coach. But we appreciate you taking time to come on our show today, Coach. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Coach Ben Becouvarakis at Warwick High School. Thanks, Coach. Well, Wube, I'm glad you got Coach Becouvarakis to join us today, because I think it will surprise a lot of soccer folks around here that Warwick is as strong as it is.
They are very strong. And again, Coach comes on and talks about the passion. Again, we always mention how when the alums come back and coach their alma maters, and he's doing a great job. It's only his first year, but, I mean, they're number one, only 1 loss, only 2 goals scored in them all year, Frank. That's amazing. And you heard what he said. He likes to score, but he hates for other teams to score on them, and they are doing a great job on the defensive end.
Well, you saw it firsthand the other night, and you were very impressed by what they got going on over there, and I hope Warwick continues to do well, and they too make a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, so far they're number one. They're going to have a tough matchup against Maury. I think they're going over there to play them, and they're really strong on the south side. And again, he says in the Peninsula District, not known for a soccer, not a soccer background in the Peninsula District, so he has to test his teams out maybe on the south side to see what kind of competition they can put together. But I mean, still 1 loss. They're going into the playoffs on a high, and we'll see what they can do.
Well, it's you mentioned it used to be that the schools that had the highest military populations around here would have the great teams. Virginia Beach,
yes,
Kecoughtan High School in particular. But you see, we've talked today how that soccer prowess has crept into schools like Warwick and then across the river to Smithfield. So the programs are growing. I know, 30 years ago people thought they'd grow much quicker, but they have grown here on the peninsula, and we're glad to see both teams succeed. You and I spent a little time together this weekend. We were out at Hampton High School over the weekend watching the dedication of the baseball diamond out there to the longtime head coach Danny Mitchell.
That was a great ceremony, Frank. I mean, just an honor and a pleasure to be there. I mean, we had him on our show a couple weeks ago, I guess, and we talked about the ceremony, and he choked up and he was emotional, and you could see why. I mean, so many people came from out of town, former players, teammates, classmates of his, and it was just great to see. It was a great ceremony. Great job by Hampton High to put that on.
It was. It was a beautiful day on Saturday, and the principals out there, Ms. Hardy, Mr. Davis, joined us. Mike Trebus, our great source of information, the athletic director over there at Hampton High School, was the MC. But Danny and his wife Cindy, and there's daughter Brooke, son Matt and son Danny were there, and it was just a nice. It was really a family gathering, but the family was Hampton High School.
Absolutely, and again, it's more than sports. I mean, sports is what brings them in, but they learn a lot more when they get with coaches like Coach Mitchell and then Coach Smith. He talked about how Coach Smith, how much he's done for him. He brought him on the staff with not much experience. He's a football coach. He comes over to the baseball side, and now he gets a field named after him. That's just awesome to see.
Yeah, got a field named after him, and they're running out of fields out there. And Mike Smith.
I joke with Mike. I said, well, what are they going to do for you? And he's, I don't know. But I'm sure they'll find something for him in a few years when he hangs it up.
Well, I want to mention Henry Morgan gave a nice little speech there on Danny's behalf. Henry, of course, the owner of the Peninsula Pilots and a Hampton High grad who had played with Danny for a year out there. I also want to mention Pat Mitchell, who was a tennis coach out there and was a gym coach when I was going through school in Hampton High. She was there yesterday. Her former son-in-law, Frankie Driver, who was one of the best pitchers ever to come out of Hampton High, played in the Cincinnati Reds organization, as I recall. But seeing Frankie come down from where he lives, I think he's in Kentucky.
I think so.
And to see Ms. Mitchell out there, it was just a lot of fun. And I know I would like to express Danny Mitchell's words, which is thanks for the support of him over the years and of the program itself.
Well, I mean, he treats the field like it's his. They joked about how his lawnmower goes back and forth on Queen Street, but that's just that's how he is. He wants to keep that field up to par, and he does a great job. Like I said, he cuts that grass probably more than his own at his house. But you saw the field. I mean, it's amazing.
It was immaculate. He's put in some artificial turf behind the foul lines and back behind the plate to keep that dry. And if you talk to Hampton Parks and Rec, there's one public school field they don't cut, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Danny doesn't want their lawnmowers on his field.
He'll take care of that.
It is now his field. The
That's
sign
right.
went up Friday night, we were told. I want to also thank two of my classmates, Terrence McCormick and Brian Sproston, both there yesterday. Great to see them back. Terrence in Northern Virginia, Brian here in Hampton, but both of them played on the Hampton team and for Danny, so it was great to see them.
Absolutely. So, like I said, so many players came back from a long way. And he even mentioned in our interview, Frank, we interviewed him after the game about, they don't have to come. I mean, it shows a lot of gratitude for them to come back. I mean, a lot of them went from Chicago. Who do you say came from Chicago? I can't remember.
Andy Allison.
So they came from Chicago, Northern Virginia, Charlotte. I mean, that's just great. And, man, I'm just happy for him. He's a great guy. I'm just happy that the field was named after him yesterday.
I was too. And, we're looking around and we're surrounding ourselves this afternoon with the printouts from the Daily Press on the all-star teams from the winter season. And, while we have all these stats that you hear about and you talk about who wins and who loses during the season, what we saw yesterday on the field in Hampton High shows that this is important.
Yes.
But the most important thing is this lasts forever. The friendships,
That's right.
The relationships, the experiences that the teams share, really, that's what lasts. It doesn't matter who wins what in 1984. What mattered is that they played together and they practiced together. They were a team.
Right.
But we want to point out the stars. We've talked to so many of the coaches of these young men, but the all-star wrestling team featuring 4-time state champion Pat McCormick. What an impressive group. And it was mostly the Pocosin lineup on that team.
Basically, yeah.
But you had a couple Smithfield wrestlers and a Hampton High wrestler, Chad Weatherspoon. So, take a look at that. The track, we had Ron Baton on. We've had Jim McGraw on to talk about the track around here. But E.J. Richardson is the featured runner in the winter season, and deservedly so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Boys basketball, we got to see a lot of these guys play this year. But Antoine Miles, Player of the Year for the Daily Press, and deservedly so. What a great year he had.
Great year, great kid, 3.7 GPA. Got to make sure we mention that. No major universities or colleges are really giving him much interest. From what I understand, it's lower Division I or Division II schools, but what a great year he had. And, he mentioned in the article that Mr. Marty O'Brien wrote, they lost 2 key players and they had to make adjustments, and he had to take on the bulk of the responsibility of the team, which he didn't have a problem doing as he was Player of the Year. But, I think they really wanted that state championship ring this year. He came up a little short, but what a great year he had.
He really did. And on the girls' side, of course, Bree Harper up at Tab, what a tremendous year she had.
And we had her coach on as well to talk about their team. They just went up against a tough Hopewell team this year and couldn't pull it off. But Bree Harper, what more can you say? She had a great year, senior year, and she went out with a bang for sure.
And you can catch up on all the other names on that list, but the one we want to talk about, Diamond Johnson, named to the All-Star team. She's the one that had been at FIBA. She certainly was headed to Player of the Year honors, but left and went to Philadelphia and ended up winning the state title in Pennsylvania, which quite a controversial move up there. Yeah. You and I are not real fond of them leaving with 2 weeks to go in the season for FIBAs.
And then she's able to play in the playoffs. I mean, for what I've been reading though, Frank, they're going to change that rule. So next year, like for example, if she tried that next year, she wouldn't be able to play. But she gets there 2 weeks into the playoffs, and then she wins a state title, and then. She's a player. I think first team all-star on this list here. But I mean, nothing taken. She had a great year. I just wish she could have finished out the year at Phoebus and gave them a shot to win a state title. But parents make decisions for these kids, and apparently they made what was best. The decision was best for them.
Well, that's going to have to carry the day because there's a lot of dissatisfied fans down here and dissatisfied opposing teams up in Pennsylvania. But we wish her well. The young lady's just a sophomore and got all the skill in the world.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But what happens to the Phoebus program now? I mean, they had girls that were possibly coming in because of her presence, and now that she moves on, we'll see how their program folds out.
Well, we're going to see a lot of before we get to the swimming here. We're going to see a lot of that. Who's going to go where or what with the new academy system in Hampton? Situation. We bring that up, and maybe over the summer we'll get somebody like Joe Kilgore of the school board to come on and talk to us about that. I did want to wrap up with the swimming, which we've had terrific swimming. York girls won the state title. We had their coach on. Just a tremendous amount of swimmers here, as they always are on the Peninsula District, but the press and Marty O'Brien got a great list for you in the paper this week.
Yeah, Coach Courtney Kelly came on, and they were state runner-up the year before, and they win the state title this year. They're rolling. They have a couple seniors that are graduating, but from what Coach Kelly said, they have a lot of young swimmers that are coming in, and they have some freshmen that she's really excited about too. So I'm sure we'll see a lot more York swimmers on this list from years to come.
I wanted to mention one young lady, Lexi Mills from New Kent, the only diver in the area. Oh. And good for her. Yeah. And I hope that her success, and she had lots of it, will inspire some young ladies to go into the diving.
Yeah, because the Peninsula, they don't have diving on the PD. So, I've never seen a diving competition because they don't have it here. So I'm glad that she was able to make that list.
No, I am too. So a great group of all-star articles in the Daily Press, and we got to see Marty yesterday and Lynn Burke yesterday. Yeah. And I love Lynn Burke, who's retired recently from the press, but it was great to see them. You said that Marty going to work with you on an all-star committee.
Yes, he replaces Lynn Burke, who was great. I mean, his Rolodex is as thick as all get out. But he stepped down, and his term was up, and then Marty O'Brien steps in, which is a great resource. It's good to have a Daily Press reporter in the committee. So I'm glad that Marty was able to come on board, and hopefully we can get some good nominees and a good cast for the nominations.
Hope so. Well, we've talked a little girls softball in this program, and I wanted to mention Allison Revere had a 3-run triple in the 8th to lift Kickintan over Gloucester 4-1. Big game between those two. They end up 9-2 apiece. Brooke Bond, of course, the starting pitcher at Kickintan, and Kirsten Green up at Gloucester, each struck out 12 in that ball game, and the big hit in the 8th inning gives Kickintan the win.
It's going to be interesting to see, Frank, who comes out of that. I mean, Brooke Bond's been rolling. Gloucester's tough. We had, Coach Dawson from Warwick on. So, I mean, it's a 3-team race between Kickintan, Gloucester, and Warwick.
And his team over at Warwick continues to roll on. Lindsay Modar, who is the pitcher of decision every Raiders game, is 11-1. That her only loss to Kickintan.
That's right. That thriller against Kickintan about a week ago.
And Helena Hickman up in Menchfield pitched a no-hitter this week against Denby. The Monarchs win it 13-0. So congratulations to that young lady. Oh, and finally, I want to mention another young lady we mentioned a couple times, the freshman over at Hampton High, Morgan Wright. She had 4 RBIs this week. And Hampton now 6-5. They get a 19-1 win over Heritage.
Big game against Kickintan, Frank, on Friday. It'll be broadcasted on LSC. Kickintan versus Hampton, and hopefully Hampton can put together a nice lineup. I know Brooke Bond will probably pitch, so let's see what can happen. I'm looking forward to that game. Hopefully it can be an exciting one.
Yeah, it will be. That's terrific. And let's see, around the area, of course, I just got back from a horse show today. I did see Drew Camp today, our competitive bass fisherman from
you did?
CNU.
Yeah,
he was
awesome.
out there supporting his sister Anne Marie.
Great interview.
She rode very well, but there's so many Peninsula kids there today riding. We were over in Wakefield again at the Airfield 4-H Center, and I was just looking at the list. It seems to grow every week, but plenty of young people from the Peninsula riding. We mentioned a couple last week that had gone to Syracuse for the IEA Nationals, Michael Lacchio and Kara Walters. I wanted to mention 2 others that were brought up by our fans, and if we forget something, feel free to send us a note on Twitter at PennSportsPod so we can pick up the names. But Audra Chaffinch over at Virginia Beach and Susie Shell from up in Toano. She's at Stonehouse Stables. The 2 of them also made the travel up to Syracuse and rode in those finals. And a big day today, the Airfield 4-H Center. So the riding is starting to heat up as the weather, thank goodness, heated up. It was not that warm this morning. We were at 4 when I arrived in Smithfield with my daughter. But and then, before we get to really the latest news, I want to mention Election Day is Tuesday, May 1, especially in Hampton. Newport News, get out and support your candidates for choice. And remember, vote for those that support our young people.
That's right. It's going to be a key election. There's some good candidates that are running, so get out there and vote, please.
And then finally, I want to mention 2 young men that will be moving on to the next level. Jonathan Gray, who's the son of my friend Lindsey Gray. Jonathan is signed to wrestle at Lyon College in Batesville, Arkansas. He's a wrestler over at Hampton Roads Academy. He signs to travel down to Arkansas to wrestle. Go. We'll have to find out whether he's got a webcast of his matches next year. But you also want to mention Trenton Cannon, or as I called him, Trenton Cannon played football at Kickintan. At the time, he probably weighed 120 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
I called him a hat rack with a helmet. At the time, the young man has gone on and torn up college football. He ended up at Virginia State, had great years up there. But, Wube, what's the news on Trenton Cannon?
Well, he was the all-time leading rusher at Virginia State. He transferred in from Shepherd, and he was, a 6th-round pick in the NFL. I mean, we saw him in high school. We saw how fast he was. Didn't necessarily think his size would translate to the NFL, but I guess speed kills, and that's what they got him for his speed, and he can run.
Speed and a special team, I'm told. Yep. They're looking at him as a punt returner and kick returner. And
that's what he specialized in at Kickintan. He was a deadly punt returner and a kick returner at Kickintan. So it's great to see. Because we haven't had a Peninsula draftee in a while, so it's good to see that.
No, congratulations to young Mr. Cannon, and best wishes as you go to the Big Apple and try to make that squad. And be honest, I've looked at their stats. They need him.
They definitely need him. They got Sam Darnold also in the draft from the USC quarterback. So they're trying to
but who needs Sam Darnold? You got Trenton Cannon. You don't need him to throw the ball.
Yep. So congratulations to him again. Another Peninsula District player going into the NFL. It's always good, Frank, when you see him in high school. You broadcasted some of his games, and good to see him make it to the next level on the big leagues.
All right. Well, a lot of games around the area. Please get out and support those in the next week or two as we head towards the playoffs here on the peninsula. Wube, you going to be out with Bethel Soccer this week?
Yes, I'm going to miss a couple games because of the broadcasting commitments that we have for LSC. But they have a game tomorrow against Churchland. Huge game. We're trying to get in the playoffs for the first time, Frank, ever. Bethel girls have never made the regional playoffs in girls soccer. So we're trying to make that run. We have Churchland, Hampton, and then Minchville to close out the week.
And be honest, if you survived the Hampton High ceremony yesterday wearing a bright yellow Bethel soccer shirt, today you're wearing another one.
Yes, I apologize to all my Hampton listeners for doing that. I forgot where I was going. I actually was a late last minute deal, and I looked down at my shirt and I was like, "Uh-oh, I forgot I had it on." But I apologize for all my Hampton.
Well, the athletic director of Bethel showed up, Lee Martin,
with a Bruins baseball
full-blown
jersey.
Bethel Bruins baseball jersey. Yes. Of course, his body has not been found yet, so you see a little hump there behind the field, a little dirt. Don't kick too deep.
Yeah, it might be Mr. Martin laying there.
And then, and we're going to be on the air recording Tuesday afternoon. Hampton Kickotan. Hampton Bethel
Tuesday,
baseball.
And Friday it's a softball game, Hampton Kickotan.
Okay. So we'll be on there. Look for that. That's channel 48 on Verizon.
23 on Cox.
Or vice versa.
I'm sorry. Apologize. 23 on Verizon, 48 on Cox.
Just look for
I look at it on YouTube, so I apologize for that.
Go look at it at YouTube, or you can just find the most popular channel, and you'll find either one of those.
There you go.
On your cable system. So thanks again to Randy Begoli for producing this episode, and thanks to Goldstein Edgar Regan for hosting us here. We're always looking for sponsors. If you feel like you want to get your name mentioned every week on the Penn Sports Podcast, just let us know. Wube, big busy week ahead, but we
love it.
Gather again next weekend.
Great time of the year, Frank. We love this.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us here at Penn Sports Podcast. Follow us at Penn Sports Pod on Twitter, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Penn Sports, all one word, and podcast, and you'll find it. Join us there and follow along with us. Glad to have you aboard today. We'll see you next week.
See ya.